Hey, what's up, everybody? We have a new YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe right now. Leave a comment on the video. Share it with your friends. It's also a podcast, 3 and Out, wherever you listen with me, John Middlekauff, Apple, Spotify. We have you covered, as well as thevolume.com. We have merch. Check out. I got 3 and Out hats right now. Thevolume.com. Search the podcast. Buy some merch. Okay, let's dive into the Middlekauff mailbag. See if I can say my own name right. Middlekauff mailbag. Just my Instagram, at John Middlekauff, 2 Fs. DMs wide open. Fire on in there. Get your question answered here. Little thing we call the podcast. Adrian, wanted to shout you out. Big fan of your work. I had a comment a while ago that you had on your mailbag, so I wanted to hear your opinion on something. With the likelihood that the Vikings or the Giants look to add a quarterback in the top 5, a blue chip wideout or lineman could fall to the Bears. In your opinion as a scout, what should the Bears benefit more from drafting? Someone like Joe Alt or Malik Neighbors? If either are available, we can do the other guy plus Odunze. I think it's a pretty tough question. What I would do if I was them is, you have a pretty good idea, right? Probably you're taking a quarterback at 1. And then I think you would factor in 3 other quarterbacks go before you draft the 9. So let's just, for the way we're doing this exercise, say they go 2, 3, 4. And then I think it'd be fair to assume not another quarterback is going to go till you pick. So 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you have a list of your top 5 players not named Caleb Williams in the draft. Right? You know Caleb's probably your top player. You're going to take him number 1 overall. And then you get 5 guys. One of those 5 guys is a 100% lock to be there. Potentially, a couple of them could be there. So you just have to decide. I think they're in a position, take your favorite player on the board. I don't think you could go wrong taking a wide receiver, because if you assume you're going to be better this year, even if you miss the playoffs, but you won 9 games, you might never have the opportunity to draft one of these wide receivers that are really, really good. So Odunze or Malik, and you give them right to the quarterback. So he basically gets to inherit a veteran, and for the next 5 years of his career, build up with this guy. Because Keenan Allen is a 1-year rental. I guess they could look to extend, but if I was a betting man, he'll only be on the team 1 year. Detroit Lions fan here. Still riding high from last year. Should be. We were expected to take a big step, but nobody, including yourself, had them on the same tier as the Niners or the Eagles. Some even put Dallas ahead of us most of the season. Now Mike Greenberg on the Crap Hole Show Get Up is claiming we missed our window. How can a team miss a window if they weren't supposed to be there in the first place? Wouldn't last year have only proved our window just opened? You have to understand, these people, podcasting is why I like this medium so much. I can talk about whatever I want. Right? I don't need to manipulate these topics over and over and over again. Now, you are playing the hits. I mean, we talk a ton about Caleb Williams. I'm not breaking down the guards in this draft. I, like you, don't give a shit. But to like the window conversation in February and March in the NFL is a stupid conversation. It's such a wasted exercise. And like you said, and I saw that happening with the Bills on First Take. It's like, no, they don't. The window doesn't close as long as you have the quarterback guys. How could the window close when all their players are young and ascending? Now, is it going to be harder? Yes. Should the Packers be better? Yes, they should. Should the Bears be better? Yes, they should. But are we sure the Eagles and Cowboys aren't going to be worse? The Rams just lost Aaron Donald. So, yeah, I'm in agreement. I like Greenberg, though. but that's a stupid cut. The Lions, of all the teams that quote unquote their window closed, they're rolling back the same team. AFC was better than the NFC prior to free agency, but seems like the gap is now a bit wider. The Texans, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Jets all improved. Thoughts? Bears, Lions better, but Cowboys, Eagles, Rams are worse. Just seems like the gap between the conferences is primarily due to quarterback. Yeah, I mean, the Niners easily could have won the Super Bowl. They had the lead in overtime. So the conference in the AFC, the AFC is the conference, but the depth of teams in that conference is clearly better. They have better quarterbacks. But who cares? Like, once the playoffs start, the Packers don't have to play Josh Allen, right? They get to play Dak Prescott. So, like, yeah, you intermix during the season, right? As an NFC team, you play one of the divisions. Like last year, the NFC West played the AFC North. So, yeah, you play Burrow and you play Lamar one time, then I don't have to see any of those guys again until I get to the Super Bowl. So I think that can be somewhat overrated. In baseball or in some of these other sports where you play more games, but you're not playing that many out-of-conference opponents. So I don't know if it matters that much. I guess is a long-winded way of saying, like, ultimately, if let's say the NFL is 100, let's just use it as a math equation. Like, all the teams equal the power of 100. And ideally, if the two conferences are equal, they'd be 50-50. But let's say the AFC right now is like 65-35. Ultimately, does it matter if, like, the 35 percentage, if two of the three teams make up 20 of it, and if they're in the conference championship, like, I think it's definitely fair to say the Niners could have beat the Chiefs, and if the Lions had won that game, they already beat the Chiefs earlier in the season. This is not a scenario. This isn't a 7-game series. If this was basketball or baseball, I would say that would matter more. It's just a one-off scenario. And it's like the NCAA tournament. It's why you see so many upsets. You get 40 minutes, right? You don't get best of 3. The thrill and excitement of March Mania is here. And DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps, is giving new customers a shot to turn $5 into $150 instantly in bonus bets with any college basketball bet. North Carolina listeners, don't forget DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in your state. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code JOHN, J-O-H-N. New customers can bet $5 to get $150 instantly in bonus bets only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code JOHN. The crown is yours. Mailbag. All your videos get me through the workday. Appreciate your hard work. That being said, longtime Steeler fan, I keep seeing reports that we're going to be aggressive throughout the offseason. Today, somebody reported we are possibly looking at an Aiyuk trade. I saw Aiyuk said, tweeted at Mike Tomlin, said, "Do we look like each other?" I would say not really, but how much sense does it make to give a first rounder either in 24 or 25 for a guy due a boatload of money? Well, the only way the 49ers can trade him to you is for a first rounder this year. Like, they can't trade him to you for a first rounder in 25. So if the trade was going to happen, you would have to trade. I'd have to look at that. I don't even know. What pick do you have? You won 10 games, bounced in the first round. I guess if I had to educate a guess, pick 21. I said this yesterday. Like, pick 21 for Brandon Aiyuk. You could argue it could be a win-win. Steelers get Aiyuk. He's good for them. He helps Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. He helps them win a playoff game. The 49ers pick an excellent player or with their 2 draft picks in the first round, and both teams are happy. Or the Steelers give Aiyuk $25 million a year. He's good, but he's not great. And then the Niners miss on the pick that they get. So it could be a disaster for everyone involved. It'd be less likely for it to be a problem for the Steelers because I know Ayuk's good. But like, I think the problem with Ayuk, and I like him a lot. I want him on my team. It does get complicated when you have to start talking these contracts. I would love Brandon Aiyuk for $18 million a year. And I understand the cap has gone up, but to pay him a ton of money, it's just like I struggle to pay any wide receiver a ton of money who's not an elite guy. You could argue the 49ers were cost the Super Bowl because Deebo Samuel couldn't get open because he can't really run routes. And against most teams, it doesn't matter. You get him the ball, he'll break tackles, get him some quick screens. And against a lot of teams, he's able to get open. But against the Chiefs, who had elite corners, he was fucked. And the Chiefs knew it coming into the game. They weren't worried about Deebo Samuel. They had the advantage, which you could say, hey, it's like, if that's the only place. Well, yeah, I gave him $60 million because he's a great player. But then in our biggest game, he can't really function. And this is like first-class NFL problems, but these are the discussions you're having. I think Ayuk is a lot like T. Higgins. And this is the problem with the complicated. And I understand if you're those guys, you got to try to break the bank. But if you break the bank on them, are they ever going to be a top 7 wideout in the league? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't. But I think the Bengals and the 49ers, if you were sitting down with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin, they'd have a take. Because the answer is either yes or no. Like, yeah, I don't see them that good. Or yeah, we believe Ayuk keeps getting better. He could be the, fringe top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Have 3-year stretch where he's catching 100 balls every single season. But they have an opinion. I promise you that. I'm torn. I just probably lean no, and I like him a lot. But if I'm going to pay him a boatload of money, I can't. Both teams fall under the same category of like, the 49ers already pay Deebo Samuel a lot. Can you have 2 wide receivers making a ton of cash? The Bengals are going to have 2 guys. Like, I just don't know if you can build your team that way. I mean, technically, you can choose to. Is that a good decision? For the Steelers, like, if you're Tomlin, I would do that trade. I would do that trade because I'm trying to win a playoff game this year. I've got time to wait. Do you think Chase Young is on the similar path as Clowney? Extremely talented, but production never really seemed to show what was expected. I think Clowney is a way better player than Chase Young. You could argue Clowney is an underachiever, but I think he's in a different universe than Chase Young. I would rather have Clowney at every step of the way than Young. Clowney feels like he's a much better run player, and definitely in his younger years. His sacks aren't there, but I think that they're not really comparable. I mean, Clowney had a really good year. How old was he this year? 23, came in the league at 24 or 2014. He just turned 31, so he was 30 this year. I will be stunned, and I mean floored, if Chase Young is still good at 30 years old. He's 24 now. I don't think they're comparable. It's interesting to hear your takes on the tipping culture, and I was having a discussion with my friend about the automatically added gratuity. I find it interesting that restaurants may add 18 to 25% gratuity, and the servers might expect even more on top of that. Are restaurants keeping their gratuity? It was my understanding that they pooled and split it among the servers on the shift. That's a good question. If you automatically add gratuity, it usually happens like if you're on a bachelor party or with a big group dinner for work and you have a big bill at a nicer restaurant, it's typically automatically kicked in, right? At 18, 20%. So if I have $1,000 bill, let's pick an even number, and you add automatically 20%. So I'm giving you $200 on top of the $1,000. So my bill with taxes is like $1,300. I should not be obligated then to add more tip. Because even if I added a tip, let's say it was 10% on top of the $1,000 bill, I'm giving you a 30% tip, assuming that the gratuity gets split and pooled between everyone, which that's my assumption. Could be wrong. Anyone in the restaurant industry, I don't know if the auto gratuity is pooled differently. I would have assumed it was. To me, if it's auto gratuity, you do not need to tip at all. Unless the server has been really cool and you've been like the point person and you want to, leave her $20 or $50 or something, but you are not obligated, in my opinion, to leave a tip after that. I'm traveling to Tucson next week and wondering if you ever spent time down there. Any recommendations to do in that area in Arizona in general? I'll definitely be checking out Scottsdale at some point. I've only been down there for work. Back when I scouted, I went through Arizona and I went to an all-star game there once as well. But I've never spent much time in Tucson, to be honest with you. I know people that do really like it, but I don't really have any recommendations. If you come to Scottsdale, hit me up. Not because I necessarily want to hang out with you, but I'll maybe point you in the right direction. Just kidding. I probably would hang out with you if I knew you, but I think you have the best takes. God, you guys are great. Now that the Bears are officially taking Caleb Williams at number 1, what position do they take at 9? I get asked this question a lot. And this gets back to the RG3 conversation. This is what makes the Bears such an awesome place to go. It's like, wait, so I'm going to a place with a number 1 pick that already has a ton of veteran talent, and we also have the number 9 pick where we easily could take one of the sweet wide receivers for me or take one of the offensive linemen for me. The Bears went from pretty questionable less than a year ago to now with the DJ Moore, Sweat ads, having the 9th pick as just a destination that Caleb Williams should be excited to go to. He also can become a star in one of the biggest cities in America that loves sports and specifically loves football. If you resurrect the Bears, and this gets back to RG3's bitterness, like he had a chance to resurrect Washington, which is a historic brand. And because of injuries, because of ego, whatever, he blames, of course, he's always pointing the finger like, yeah, it was the Shanahan fault. Some of it could have been your fault. I remember your dad demanding a different offense. And who knows? There's been some questions with Caleb and his dad. But in the NFL, no one gives a shit what your parents think. No one cares. Just like in the real world, your boss does not care what your parents say when you are a salaried employee. Like this is in high school. And Caleb has the opportunity to do what RG3 couldn't do. Change a franchise for a decade and resurrect the franchise. The difference here is, like I said on the podcast, the Shanahans didn't want Robert Griffin III on their football team. They didn't, and he knew that. These guys want Caleb Williams. Anytime someone wants you, it's a little bit more powerful than when they not only don't want you, but they kind of resent the fact that they were forced into taking you.